broadcasting live out of a basement in Appleton, Wisconsin. You're tuned into Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. We're the show that gives you an opportunity to call in and be a part of the show. Our call-in line is 920-358-0795. Core.
My next guests, they formed technically as a solo project and then ended up extending into a full band. They've got an album coming out. They released a new single. I'd like to welcome Justin, Steve, Dean, and Jay to Fox Cities Core on WCZR Code Zero Radio. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
We're good. We're
good. Tired.
You made it sound like there was debauchery last night. It was very tame.
Well, so to set the stage, you were in Milwaukee. Madison last night.
Yeah.
Was it I think the show started at 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. No, it didn't.
Were they doing punk time last night?
Yeah, I think it was like 10:30, 40, maybe 10:40 when we started.
There was this one couple who kept, because you play after the people are done eating, and there was this couple that then they ordered dessert, and it just went on. So then we couldn't start the show right on time.
And Justin has a new keyboard configuration, so he was struggling a little bit to get that all in order.
The space, we were at Mickey's, which is a really cool venue on Williamson Street, and like an old house converted into a restaurant and bar, and they have live music all the time. And the space for playing is like 3 people, right? And Dean and I were kind of in one space, and he was using a new Moog from Jay and trying to incorporate that into this setup, and Dean kept getting in my way, so it's important that everyone at Mickey's know that we started late because Dean was in my space.
Can keyboard players be like guitar players? Like, I know Jay's got a nice selection of pedals. Can it kind of get to be too much?
He's writing that line currently because I don't think he knows how to use most of it, so it's like a real gamble. And then he has note cards that I think of where to plug in everything. And
yeah, one of the songs I asked Steve if we could have about 90 seconds between the songs, maybe mention the name of the band or something. And
how am I supposed to banter for 90 seconds?
There's 38 settings that need to be changed from the prior song to this song. You have your Moog and you're changing all of that, and then that goes through a delay pedal, but that's the line 6 delay, and so there's all sorts of things changed there. And that's for that keyboard. And then I've got the Nord, and then the Nord has different settings, and then I have a delay there. And you try to do some presets, but then when I preset to the album, and then when we play live and we're 8 times as fast, and you change some of the
Sounds like a gripe session more than anything.
It is,
and that's all the time we have today, everybody.
Well, I've got to say I appreciate you guys coming in today on such a lack of sleep. It's a big exciting day for you guys. I'm trying to listen to hear when you guys are on Homebrew this morning as well. So I'm trying to hear when that comes on so I can kind of pipe that through. But
nice.
It's been a while since you guys released an album.
Yeah, it has. I mean, we did the last record was a COVID record.
I'm going to cut in here really quick, Steve. I'm sorry.
Around still. The band is Stephen McCabe, Jay Spanbauer, Chris Sasman, Justin Mitchell, and Dean Hoffman. It's a bittersweet moment for the band as the album was produced by Uber producer, world-renowned engineer Steve Albini at his Electric Audio Studio in Chicago. And sadly, as we all know, tragically, Albini passed away suddenly and unexpectedly on May 7th. But will forever live inside the enormous catalog of music that he helped make, including this album. Street date for the brand new album, If You Are Around Still, is July 13th. Pre-orders being taken right now. Bandcamp page, Redshift Headlights official page. The lead single is the title track, If You Are Around Still. It's out now on Redshift Headlights Bandcamp page, but you could hear it live tonight at Cranky Pat's in Neenah at a show with Body Futures and The Present Age also chipping in on that show. But it's going to be a great show at Cranky Pat's tonight. And it's also here now in your ears. This is the brand new single from Redshift, Headlights, If You Are Around Still, on WAPL, Homebrewed Radio.
John did a lot of work there for me, so I appreciate it.
That's great. John's awesome.
Thank you, John.
He sure is. And it's, again, Homebrewed is on every Saturday morning, 9 a.m., but it's got to be a good feeling to hear yourself on WAPL, the station you probably listen to, throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's kind of been the cornerstone of this area for, radio, it's borderline major market kind of, what is it, 100,000 watts or something? I'm told that's a lot of watts. So
I think I've heard the same thing, 100,000 watts. But, okay, so sorry again, that was kind of a shaky intro, but I wanted to make sure that we kind of heard what was going on there, because you've got a lot of irons in the fire this weekend. This show, Homebrewed, and a couple shows. So you got home late last night. If you're playing Madison, probably like 3 a.m, I'm guessing.
I left early. I got home at 1:30.
And Steve, you were mentioning that you put on Facebook that one of the bands you really enjoyed last night.
Yeah, well, we've known Heavy Looks for a long time. We love Heavy Looks, and then we also played with Educational Davis, and they were really, really cool and really eclectic, and went from funk to like drony, noisy, weird stuff. It was really a fun.
Talking headsy.
Yeah, talking headsy, yeah.
Do you typically like playing with bands that you haven't played with before? Like, how was this show put together?
Chris Sasman pretty much put that together, since he has, his connections in Madison, and so he knew Educational Davis, had played with them before, and so yeah, it was great. It was really fun. People were very nice, and it was well attended and all that stuff.
Yeah, we played with Heavy Looks down there before, and then they came up for a show in Oshkosh a couple years ago. Mm-hmm.
And then tonight you're playing with The Present Age, which is just a phenomenal band out of Oshkosh.
Yeah, one of our favorite bands.
Dean's rocking the shirt. And later we're going to talk about Oshkosh Rocks, which did a fabulous series of videos of one of them being The Present Age.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the new album. So this album was the 4th album from Redshift Headlights. The first one being Inside Voices, and then Oshkosh, and then People, and then this one. And you guys kind of went a non-conventional, kind of outside your comfort zone for recording this one. Can you kind of explain to me the whole process of deciding how you're going to record this one and how the songs came together?
Oh, like some of these songs, I mean, we were just talking last night, that started before COVID. Like, we were rehearsing what became Love Monsters before Raquet Fest 2020. And so there's this really early, and that's one of Justin's songs. And so there's this really long arc for this album, really, that most of the songs we wrote in the last year and a half or so. But
this is the first album where all of us contributed songs.
Yeah, so it's everybody wrote 2. Jay wrote 3 for this record, and so that was really different. There was this very much more collaborative process, which was awesome.
Except Sasman, we don't let him write anything.
He breathes life into everything, though, so he's really the puppeteer, and we're just the marionettes.
Well, I know the first single was a single that Jay started the riff for. Was that accurate?
No, that's all.
Justin. Yeah, we had started doing that one. I think that one was like a really long time ago. We were talking with Melissa last night, and I think she was playing with us at that time, because I think there's like vibraphones on that old demo and stuff like that. And that was, I think, like early into when Steve had a studio, and we all crammed in there for like 1 or 2 rehearsals, and it was unsustainable, I think, for how little room we had in there. But yeah, so we've been kind of doing those for a while now, a couple of them.
It's kind of funny is, the song I had written on an acoustic guitar and shared it with the band, and the initial feedback was like, I can't follow any of the transitions. This is terrible. You need to put like drums or something to it. So Jay then, and this is back in like 2018-ish or so, Jay put a click track to it, and so the file has just been called like click track blah blah, and has kind of sat on the shelf for a long time, and then finally when we started to work on this album, kind of brought it back and
finished her up,
worked through those transitions. And
so 2018, I mean, that was back in
this was the Oshkosh
pre-people
area,
territory
that was initially shared. But
so why was it not? It was too like raw to work on and get on the People album.
Yeah, his demos are kind of inscrutable too, and we had other stuff to do, and it seemed better. So I'm glad it turned out though.
It's not a smooth transition. I don't play guitar in the band, and so when I do, if I write something on guitar, I'm not thinking of what works for Steve to play and sing and all that other stuff. So sometimes there's a little bit of a rocky transition, and then I have to come up with keyboard parts, and I don't have it because I'm hearing the guitar parts, and it's not always the smoothest, but it takes 5 years sometimes, I guess.
Yeah.
Was it hard for you, Steve, to let go and let some of the other guys deliver songs?
No, that's what I've kind of always was hoping we'd eventually do, and we like had when Melissa was in the band, we had band meetings. We went up into like a restaurant or bar or something and had a meeting like how we could collaboratively write the next record. So I think we've been trying to do
We
this.
just never did that.
What's that?
We just never did
We just never did it. It never came together. I mean, like the People album came all from demos I had on my phone, and I sent them to everybody, and everybody in their own like COVID bubbles wrote their parts and then emailed them in or whatever, sent them in, and then we put them together. So, that disrupted the collaborative, really sharing idea. And this was the first time that we've done this, and this was really, I really enjoyed this record, but it was a challenging record to make, for sure.
Well, another different thing about this is you guys got a new drummer. Can you tell me about how you found Chris? And we've got Chris on the phone, by the way. Out of transparency, you want to say hi, Chris?
Yeah, how are you, fellas?
There he is.
Hey, Chris.
Can you turn my earphone up just a touch?
Yeah, ours are.
Hey, we're back. Ooh, no, I can hear myself.
And we're back.
So, I mean, Chris, you can do it, or the guys here can talk a little bit about how you became involved.
They can go ahead. That's just fine.
Yeah, I've known Sasman for 40 years. So we grew up together, and we played a number of shows, together with Chris is in Free Dirt as well, and I think we were drummerless for a bit, and Chris sat in with us anyways, and so it just kind of made sense to permanently bring him on board.
We played a show, Oshkosh Main Street Music Fest, a few years ago when Todd Farber was in our band, and we asked Chris to kind of come in and augment a couple of the songs that had double drums and orchestral drum kind of things going on. And so that was the first time I played with Chris, but I guess we go back, like we met Chris in Shawano in the 90s, Dean and I guess, or didn't meet him, but he was at a show. That's when we played a festival called Moonapalooza in the 90s, and Chris was like a teenager or something like that. How old were you, Chris?
I was 14 at that time. Yeah, I was 14 at the time, and they somehow let us come out there and hang out, which was great. But I've said to these guys many times, but Steve and Dean and Cookie Bug were some of my first live music kind of inspirations, if you will, since I was quite young. So 30 some years later to be asked to play with them was pretty cool experience for me.
Chris, did you ask them to whip out any of the Cookie Bug songs?
I thought about it for a little bit, but I didn't know. I wasn't totally sure if that was still fresh on the tongue with them or not. But
so what did Chris bring to the band that? And what element did he bring that might not have been there prior to his joining the band?
I'll take a professionalism that all of the rest of us lack. So the first time that he came to a practice, we first time he sat in with us, we went through a song, and at the end of the song, like, it kind of just broke down, and Chris is like, "That's not how you guys do it on your album." And so, right away from the get-go, he had everything that we played on the album like perfectly memorized, or he knew it better than us, and that was super impressive.
Was it kind of hard to learn all these songs, Chris? I know you're doing free dirt as well, so you're doing multiple projects.
Yeah, it was. Obviously, it was a commitment in time, and when I got asked to do it, I wanted to be very prepared, because if I do get hired to do something or be a part of it, I want to show up and obviously, hopefully, contribute as best as I can. But I actually ended up taking, during that span of time, I was on vacation in Michigan, and I brought my electronic drum kit up to Michigan I was up there for about 10 days, and I'd just go to the beach, hang out for about 3-4 hours, and then come back. And I had a big private studio room where I just rehearsed those songs. I rehearsed the record basically over about once a day for 10 days while I was on vacation. So by the time I came back, it was feeling pretty good. But yeah, it was hard, but at that time I had time to do it, so it worked out really well.
I remember there was a Friday night, I think we were practicing, and we texted Chris and said, we're practicing, and he was on this vacation, and he texted a picture back, "I am too." He was practicing during his vacation. We didn't even... It was awesome.
So Chris he is a full-time part of the band now, permanent.
Yep.
That's awesome. Has it been a struggle as far as Free Dirt and Redshift Headlights scheduling shows around each other? I know you played at the Fox River House together once.
Yes, yep, that was really convenient, and we're actually playing the release show at the Salon in Oshkosh together with Free Dirt as well. So I'll tell you what, when those stars align, it surely makes my job a lot easier, because yeah, it has. I knew, as I mentioned to the guys, it was going to be kind of a surgical operation to make this happen, and it has been. There's a couple other projects I'm working on down here besides that too. So it's been a little bit tricky, but I appreciate their patience, obviously, with dealing with what's happening. And we've been able to get some good shows on the books this summer and hope to add some more. So, but yeah, it's been a navigational situation, but we're getting through it.
Can you guys tell me about the recording of this upcoming album? I know it's kind of changed over time, but we'll go back. I know we started to bring it up at the beginning of the show, but can you take me through the whole process of how you decided to do what you did, tell me what you did, and kind of walk me through the whole kind of chronological order of how everything went down?
Well, maybe I'll start and then people can jump in. But this record was complicated in its construction, and it felt like we were initially talking about recording it ourselves, either partly maybe at my studio or at the Salon, which both would have been great. But the drawbacks of recording ourselves is that have to engineer and think about that stuff and think about technical stuff, and then try to be our
have a natural performance, and not be distracted with that stuff.
And so it really, at a certain point, it seemed like pretty daunting. And so at one point, I kind of floated the idea, like, maybe we should go record somewhere else. And I just on a whim, I didn't even tell everybody that I was doing this, but I just out of the blue emailed Electrical Audio one Saturday morning, and I said, we'd be interested. We're working on a record. I didn't clear this with anybody. Working on a record. We're wondering if Mr. Albini might be free to record for a day with us, because I thought we had just enough money that we could maybe record for a day there, which was completely irrational. But I proposed, I'm like, if he's available, and I was very formal, and I sent our demos, and within an hour and a half, Steve Albini emailed back and said, sure, I'd be happy to do it. And so then suddenly I had to explain to everybody that I'd reached out to Steve Albini.
Were you expecting him to personally email you back like that?
No, I thought I would just put the feelers out, and then all of a sudden we were, sliding down this hill here, and so then that was not an easy sell for everybody. There were lots of really reasonable and logical explanations for not doing going down and recording. It was, we have 2 studios. It's expensive, and all kinds of things. And then eventually, I think Dean, one day you came in and you said, "All right, let's come up with a plan." And so we had a long conversation where we talked about what's feasible, what could we do, what could we not do, and kind of went from there.
Were you guys nervous about that? Kind of the big investment of going down to Chicago and recording down there out of your comfort zone?
It was more just making sure that we were prepared on our end and stuff. You only have so much time. We only have so much budget. So it's just kind of making sure that when we get there, we get done what we have to get done, basically. So
how much was done, like how much was written fully by the time you guys booked that?
Pretty much everything. I think everything. We also do, because we have studios and stuff like that, we have some of the best sounding demos of like any band ever, because we just multi-track everything, and then we just kind of naturally mix stuff to our taste. So
yeah, we had a good template to go off of.
Yeah, because of that, we were able to kind of, figure out things that are working, that aren't working, different, pain points, trouble points, and stuff like that, and just have like a really good idea of doing stuff. And that also helps like Chris, I would imagine, as well too. We put together these demos, and typically I will play drums on them just for ease and stuff like that to get it done. And so we just these really this is exactly what we want it to sound like, more or less, and we just need to kind of recreate this. And so it works that way. We were pretty prepared when it came to that.
Yeah, not just pretty prepared. I mean, like we 75% of the album, I would say, was recorded basically just live, where we took 1 or 2 tracks, maybe 3 sometimes, and took the best one, and that's how we did it. There wasn't like do the drums, then the bass, then add the guitar. The only thing that got added really later was vocals, and then a couple little fill-in things from Jay or me on keyboard or something, but we killed it in a day and a half. The previous 2 albums we kind of did the recording, and so you could take 100 takes if you wanted. And here it was just super focused. We were well prepared. Cut through half the album the first day and got right back at it the next day.
Did you send anything to Steve as far as any of the demos you guys were working on, so he had an idea of what you sounded like? Yeah,
with that first email, we had a live rehearsal that we did, that we multi-tracked, and it sounded really good. It sounded pretty close to the album, not with the aesthetics of Albini and the electrical audio, but pretty close. And so, and that was like live. We were ready then, 2 months before we booked the studio time. So yeah.
So you go down there feeling pretty good. Like, what was the studio like? Have any of you been at Electrical Audio prior to that?
No, we have friends who have been there, but we've never been there ourselves.
I was pretty amazed. I was like...
It was definitely a cool experience. You've seen lots of photos or videos or heard stories and all that sort of stuff, and it's cool to, be down there and get in there and meet people and just kind of, jump in and stuff like that. It was a fun experience for sure.
And you stayed there, right, overnight at the studio, so you had full reign of the place at night?
Yeah, I remember I had like something to do the next morning, which ended up falling through, but I had like work stuff to do, so I was sitting like in the control room in like Steve's Studio A, like at like 1 a.m, like working on building some stuff for work or whatever and stuff like that. So we, if we wanted to go down and play and rehearse and stuff, we could have. I think they just kind of stayed upstairs and watched TV and had a couple drinks or something. I don't remember.
Well, and Mr. Albini is known for his drum sound. So, Chris, were you a little intimidated going down there? Excited?
I was excited. Yeah, he's definitely known for his drum sounds. And I have to say I've heard plenty of recorded material, and I wondered how would it translate to what we were doing. But definitely not intimidated by the situation. For me, I just wanted to go down there and just see how it was to interact with him in general. Big name, big personality. What is it going to be like on a kind of micro basis? And it was fantastic. Completely comfortable the entire time. Got a chance to just hang out with him while he mic'd up the entire kit and kind of chat through things a little bit. And right off the bat, I mean, we had drum sounds that we were happy with within like 20 minutes, and it was smooth as silk and sounded phenomenal right out of the gate. So we were through my stuff pretty quick, and clearly it's one of his expertise. So it went great and was fantastic.
As far as like getting to the studio and meeting him for the first time, did he actually answer the door at the studio when you knocked on it, or how was the first meeting?
We got met with an intern, actually, who had gotten us in and kind of gotten us situated. And Steve was in the main live room at that point in time, just sitting at the board, hanging out. And I think he might have been actually grabbing a couple phone calls, which was also something that was really interesting. When people would just call the studio, oftentimes it was just him answering it, and just immediately you were talking to him. Pretty straightforward, I mean, and it was really cool to just see him interact with people that were just randomly calling in. So he was in there. I think our Steve went and had a chat with him, and then eventually we just kind of all cycled into that room and got a chance to just hang out and talk. But for me, no level of intimidation, because he really made that environment extremely comfortable right off the bat. I mean, that guy was a very welcoming and just kind of like common man feeling type of individual for how much of a big personality he has.
How much of your own gear did you guys take down? Did you end up using a lot of the studio gear? Because Albini has a ton of stuff down there, and it was probably, I mean, did you have a hard time deciding, well, I'm going to use some of Steve Albini's things or use what we brought?
I think we brought most of our own gear. I think, Dean, you played through some sort of like cab and head that they had there. I played my amp and most of my stuff. I used a couple of his guitars on a thing. I used one of his aluminum neck ones he used in shellac, and then I liked that, so then I bought one afterwards. But it was Justin had his whole piano rig. Steve brought a couple amps, so Chris always brings his drums. Chris is very peculiar about bringing his drums and all his gear. So
the studio has just a beautiful sounding
that
Wurlitzer.
Yeah.
So we used Steve's Wurlitzer and his Rhodes.
But yeah, it was one of those all that stuff is there, but you also don't want to be the people that just show up with just get out of your empty car too. And at some point too, when you only have 2 days, you don't necessarily have a ton of time to audition a lot of sounds. And Steve is also not a person to work with where you go to him and hey, what do you think? He's well, what do you normally do? Or he's he doesn't really give any sort of his takes or opinions and stuff like that. He's if he answers anything, it's here's the answer, here's why it's the answer, and if there's another option. It's very engineer brain type stuff.
Execution things he'll give his opinion on. You could have, played this a little better here, but not producing, sound stuff.
Yeah, it's pulling teeth to get some sort of aesthetic, how did that sound? You played it correctly. Not what I asked. Yep. But
yeah, and he was right with us because we knew how we sounded and we knew what amps we wanted to use and we'd already kind of communicated all that stuff in preliminary emails back and forth and stuff. So yeah,
a lot of the reviews.
I think also he does a really good job too, which he has been written about extensively. But his entire intention is really to document what the band is and let you be who you are, which is great because I feel when you go into the studio and somebody comes at you with, hey, how about this and how about that? And you've been rehearsing songs for forever to go in there and be prepared. He just lets you be exactly what you are, which I think is a very intentional move to not, add a bunch of different information or add a lot of different opinions. He's trying to document what you are in that moment. And that was honestly, very comforting.
A lot of, writing has been that he was or is very opinionated, and that never came through during our session. I feel like there was one instance during any of my playing that it seemed like he was giving some sort of maybe you should do this because it sounded good. So it was one part I wrote down there, and it was kind of a solo-ish part, and I had a hard time getting it to match the rhythm with the rest of the band, and so I had to take 3 takes of it. And after the second one, he's like, just so you know, at the end, you keep cutting it shorter and shorter and shorter. And like, I interpreted that as he really liked the way that it sounded when it dragged out much longer, and so to stick with doing that, and like I feel like that was as close to him giving an opinion. Like, couldn't just flat out say it. He had just getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and so.
How long did the awe factor last? Was it hard not to like ask him questions about all the great albums he's recorded? Did it kind of, were you guys all business with him, like we need to get our stuff done? Or were there times where you sort of pulled him aside and asked him about recording the Breeders or the Pixies or Nirvana?
He didn't really talk about recording. He talked a lot about Wisconsin punk rock from back in the day and his experiences playing. I don't think he really talked about anything with recording other groups, did he?
There was a period of time later on that I think we were probably about 75% of the way through the first day that I think Jay had just casually asked him about some of his favorite studio experiences, and he opened up quite a bit about his history of favorite places he's ever recorded, and some of his favorite sessions, and he kind of went on a roll there for a while talking about some of those experiences, which was great, but he kind of gave us a little insight on what he had done traveling, and that was really awesome.
Yeah, I had maybe a 5-minute conversation with him about the studio itself, the construction and the architect, and why one room was called Alcatraz. It's a very unique studio. All the floors they're like floating. They're not attached to the wall, so you don't get any vibrations coming through. So it's a really unique building.
Yeah, and he went back into how much he paid for the building when he first got it, and then they found bones in the basement originally, and they installed he shared a lot of cool stories that were they were like little moments where we had worked really hard and recorded something, and then we kind of just took a break and talked, and those were good, just kind of reset moments for I think all of us.
It's almost like if you weren't even recording, it would have been worth it to go down there and just talk to Steve Albini.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that was one of the selling points. Us all being interested in recording, it would have been like an educational experience for us. So
that was my argument point 6 in my why we should go down.
So what was your attack plan? Did you have the songs? Let's knock out the easy ones that we've got down first, or did you decide to tackle a hard one? How did you decide how you're going to tackle?
We just did the record. Yeah, we had just always been rehearsing it from 1
Start
through
to finish.
9.
So you knew what the sequence was already.
Yeah, so we just did it, and it just worked that way. We had done it kind of for so long, and we've been, like I said, demoing these songs for a stupid long time, and we've had multiple good demo versions of these that we could very easily have polished up to just do the record that way. So we had kind of been listening to it a lot and all that, so it was pretty business we know we only have so much time. We know you're also in an unfamiliar space, in an intimidating space, in working with somebody who you at best idolize and at most you respect and stuff, so you kind of just are ready to just get your work done, basically. And that was the kind of vibe of the just entire experience, was just really workmanlike and stuff like that. That was kind of his thing more than anything, is I'm here to do a job, this is what we need to do, I'm going to help, or I'm going to come in when I feel it's in the best to keep things moving or to get things done. And it was just easy as a result. Everybody knew what they were doing, everybody involved, Steve and us, and yeah, he was great.
After you guys left the studio, did you stay in contact with Steve Albini?
With the studio,
yeah, more with the there wasn't much we needed from them at that point, basically. It's kind of one of those things where, like, now as we're finishing it, this would have been the point in which we'd be kind of reaching out more, sending, hey, this is what we did, or this is how we finish it, and stuff like that. So when it comes to that sort of thing, that's the kind of bummer of, like, missing out on that experience now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even after, you know, a week or so after, I think Dean said, you know, that was cool. Like, maybe every time we make a record, we'll go down and do it there. You know, I remember he said that, and which was, yeah, that was a, yeah, obviously can't happen, but at least, you know, with Steve. But hopefully the studio will continue, and, you know.
So, I mean, we move on to the sad part of the story. How did you guys find out about Steve's passing, and how did it hit you, since you were just months prior down there working with him? You might have been, you know, one of the last handfuls of projects he ever worked on.
Yeah, I hadn't heard. I was doing work on my computer, and I had my Facebook page open, and a message popped up from Matty Day, and he kind of out of the blue said, "Did you hear?" And I'm like, "What?" And so that's how I found out, was through Matty Day, who I don't really know very well. We'd met once or twice, and then you and I listened to his record when we were here after the last time I was on this show, and cool dude, but he reached right out and let me know, and then I messaged everybody in the band, and because everybody was working that day, and
it was like in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
It was like 8 or 9 in the morning or something like that.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay.
And the rest of you guys, I mean, it had to be kind of a weird, surreal feeling. And did you already have the title of the upcoming album picked out at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, it almost takes like a double meaning in a way.
Yeah, and it is about friends. That song is about friends we've lost. It's kind of about the, like, you know, for us as musicians, like, the pinnacle of friendship has always been just kind of like hanging out and making music together. And so that's kind of what that song was about, like an aspirational, like, hey, I like you, let's hang out sometime and start a band together, you know? And then, but that hasn't always happened with people we've known, and we've lost friends along the way. You know, as we get older, we lose more and more. And then with Steve being gone too now, yeah, you're right. That does resonate with that.
Notice the album, it's got, some of the songs are edgier than I'm used to from Redshift Headlights. There's more intensity. You had these songs written before you were going to record it electrical audio, but I didn't know if that was intentional originally, that you wanted to put more of an edge on this, since it could be the subject matter. I don't know, but
that made it seem like it was a better. I think that was another, like, selling point for doing it there, was that a lot of the songs were a little more on the heavy side, and kind of.
The Few Rounds still has some really good, like, abrasive guitar in it. I love it. But
yeah. It just kind of naturally fit, I think, basically. And we had, I think when we had started doing some of these songs, Steve had, like, this, like, trio of metal songs, and that we were kind of playing, that I think we only finished, like, one of them. But and then I had written a song that we were playing last year that was a little heavier, and yeah, I don't know. I think the natural progression, at some point, we were kind of done being a cello and horns and vibraphone band, I think, for a little while.
Jay insisted no horns on this album.
Well, I think that's the interesting thing that happened here, too, is the fact that everyone in the band, except for me, was writing tunes. So the fact that it kind of gravitated that direction also caught my attention as well when I first heard the batch of tunes, because I knew they were coming from multiple different people. So something's in the water up there in Oshkosh, I guess.
What did you guys think? The rest of the band minus Steve, what did you think of the Bird and Air material that Steve put out a few months ago?
I gotta go.
I think that probably is another reason we didn't, and he was probably for making a less layered and complicated record, is because that is definitely what that is. And I think kind of going back to not wanting to do this all ourselves and have a million things. Like a lot of times those Redshift records turn into like giant ordeals because there's just like a million things in them, or there's a bunch of different layers, or we're trying to perfect this or that or whatever. So it was cool that he got that out of his system, and then we could make a more simple and I don't know, more loud and abrasive record, I guess.
Well, there's a clip. You guys had somebody down there recording video and taking photos, and
Colin Crowley was with us the whole time. Yeah,
and thank God you did, because you got a lot of good material that you released so far. Are we going to be seeing a lot more of the studio pictures and footage coming out as this album rolls out?
He's just finishing up the full-length video for the single, and so within the next couple of weeks that should premiere somehow in some way. And then he's got between 6 and 8 hours of footage or something like that of the weekend, and that may come in. He's a very busy guy, so he's not going to edit that together. But we might do something with it, and just to like tell a little story about the recording time that we had there.
Is this your first time recording with somebody documenting it the whole time?
Yeah. It was cool too, because I think Colin is a big fan of Steve Albini as well too, so he it was a cool experience for him. But like I was talking to him, and he was kind of talking, there's some people that are really good at, like, if you have a camera like in their face and they just kind of act natural and stuff, and he could tell pretty early that, like, hey, maybe don't just like go stand up next to Steve with a camera and stuff like that. And in our like emailing back and forth, we'd referenced we were going to do this, and I forget what Steve had said, but it was basically along the lines of, well, this never works out and is always gets in the way and slows things down, but it's your session, you can do whatever you want. And so I think Colin took it as this like personal challenge to like, I'm going to be a fly on the wall, I'm not going to get in the way of Steve at all, and I would say he accomplished that. So
yeah, there's even a moment in the email where Steve said, I know, he's going to be a fly on the wall.
Well, you did release that clip. You played it on Live at 5 when you're on Steve. We're going to play that. Chris, we're going to let you go. Thank you for spending some time with us today, and good luck tonight at the show.
See you later, Chris.
Hey, thanks a million, Andy. Thanks for having us.
See you up here, Chris. Take care.
All right, take care.
How was this album different from the other albums? Besides the recording, besides you writing it, was there a hard song on this album that you guys didn't think was going to get over the field goal line?
Well, because we did this whole collaborative process, I think, we had all the music in by December, and then I had like a month and a half kind of break between work, and so that's when I recorded lyrics for Bird and Air, and then lyrics for the songs that I wasn't writing, or that Dean wasn't writing lyrics to. So Dean wrote some lyrics for stuff, and I wrote some lyrics for stuff, and Jay and Justin didn't have any melodies, so there was a lot to do. And Jay has a song that's now called All You Do Is Lose, and it's a really hard song to play. It's a really cool song. It's really fun. But I had one night, I had a night to kind of get something together. I said, tonight I'm going to try to write some melodies to it. And so I went out to the studio at about 10 p.m. and I played a song, and I did this sort of scat singing where I didn't have it, just to come up with some melody ideas, and I did 2 passes, and I'm like, there's something there. So then I started cutting up the ideas from those 2 passes, and it basically ended up being the melody for the whole song. And then I spent the rest of the night writing lyrics to it, and by 4 a.m, I was intoxicated and had the whole song done, and it turned out with harmonies and everything, and it turned out really good. And that song, I'm really proud of my contribution to that. But Jay wrote just a great song, a great template, and it's a really hard song to pull off live. We played it okay yesterday.
Yeah, it was fine.
We got through it, and so that's for me the standout song in terms of difficulty.
Yeah, that one's a little tricky to play and sing on at the same time.
Is there going to be more scatting in the future?
I don't think there's any scatting on the record.
There are a lot of funny demos with Steve. He has his whole language he's made up to help him sing when he doesn't know the lyrics. And so at one time I was listening to them in the car with my daughters, and they're like, "What is he singing? I don't understand." We debut that sometime.
It's a process.
We talked about it on the show before, but Steve does have a unique kind of cadence in singing. It a lot of words. How do you remember all those?
You should ask Dean that.
I don't remember them.
Because with Dean doing more like singing on this record, there were times where like it would be like parts that Steve had written and stuff like that, and then it's just like, how do we pronounce misanthropy or misanthropy or just like shit like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and for that one we realized, we have to mispronounce it for it actually to work in the lyrics. So that has a slight mispronunciation, but
it's
for me, lyrics are like visual. So I don't even really know the words. I see stuff, and then the words come out like with it. So once I kind of know the words, that's when I'm seeing things. I'm seeing stories. And then the words kind of come along. So it's like sometimes I get stumped. I'm like, what's the opening word for this? And then Jay will be like, this is the line. And I'm like, oh. And then I see the thing, and then I can do the lyrics. It's a weird. I have a bad brain.
And you usually do that pretty late in the game. And even then, you might change your lyrics. Like 2 albums ago.
This record, not as much. That Oshkosh one, there's probably like 100 different versions of every song or whatever. Those lyrics changed a ton.
But sometimes, 2 weeks before we go to recording, you'll nail down what you're going to be singing. And something that Jay always wants to do is, despite all of the noise that he creates, is have get rid of that. We don't want too much business there. It's too busy over here. And so I try to wait for, to hear what Steve's doing before, filling in some of what I do, because a lot of it's filler. And even then solos, I don't want to be doing that over Steve. So that was one of the interesting things is I think our last practice, I still didn't have my parts done for some of the solo lines. And so like when we got down to the recording studio, like they had never heard them. And, I think they came through pretty good. And I think one of them I wrote that night before our second night of our second day of recording. The core of the song was all there, but I didn't have my parts finalized because I needed to hear first what Steve was doing. So
what's the thing with having like a now 5 but previously like 6-person band too is like at some point not everybody needs to be playing all at the same time. And when it's like Justin and I, a lot of the stuff we do, it's like, we don't have to play the entire duration of the songs. There's bass, drums, and guitar and vocals and stuff happening. It's more just like if you come up with a cool part or you come up with something that like works, it's like, all right, do we need to do this the entire length of the song, or can we just pick a couple spots to like do it and stuff like that? And so it's not all like cutting stuff or like, fading stuff in and out and just that kind of process or whatever.
Yeah, the songs have a lot of atmosphere to them. Jay, you're doing like your guitar work. It is a lot of textures and layers, and I think that when I think of Redshift Headlights, I think of that, and specifically when I think of Steve's style, even on the Burden Air, it's lots of layers. Mm-hmm. Which you spend more time worrying about painting that musical layering, or are the lyrics like the last thing you typically work on when you're writing?
They're not the last thing. But I really take the lyrics really seriously, and I work really hard on them. And I kind of grew up in a religious like family, and so and I'm not religious anymore, and so for me, songs are like kind of my little what I have as a in a spiritual thing. So they're I think of a song as a little morality, where it has a balance and it has to give in to good for a while and come to the evil, and then kind of come back and forth. And so that's tough to get to sometimes. So it's a gradual process where you're refining things. So as
far as the song titles go, you guys had the show yesterday, you have one tonight. Do you have Do all you have the song titles memorized, so when you see it on the set list, you know what song it is? Or are you still at the point where when I hear that first chord, I'll know what it is and I'll just jump in and play it?
I think we're locked in. I think Justin was asking, he's like, I can't remember the name of the song. He's like, we have been doing this for like months now at this point.
Well, in that song in particular, it's been Jay's one.
Oh, yeah, we did have a complicated
for like a year and a half.
For a long time, yeah.
You guys have also, you've done so much as far as for the Oshkosh, in the Valley in general, the music scene. Justin, you did Water City Raquet. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, Raquet Fest.
Is that still a thing? Is that still going on?
Haven't really done anything since, I guess, COVID. We maybe went out on a bang with...
that was like literally, that was how I got COVID. I think that was how a lot of people, like, before we knew what COVID was, because that was like late February of 2020. And I remember being sick for like 2 weeks after that, and I think everybody else was too. Our drummer, Todd, he was like up in Minneapolis with his wife or something like that, and he got like deathly sick, and then he didn't tell us until like after we had played the show and stuff like that, and then it was just all people flying in from across the country, and it was like...
It was an amazing event.
It felt like the Oshkosh Super Spreader event, though, before we knew anything.
I think the great thing about that, and Justin, thank you for all the time you put into that, is that last one you guys had bands reuniting that were a part of the scene and hadn't played together for a long time. I got to see bands that I didn't dream I would get to see ever. Great time, and hopefully if you decide to bring it back.
We've talked about it. It's really hard to find this perfect space that works for the 12 different needs that you have, and it is a tremendous amount of energy to put something like that together. And by no means was just me, Steve, Chuck, and the music scene in general. Dean's doing his video thing at the Salon. That's a pretty cool thing. There's a vibrant, music scene downtown. Shuby and Present Age, and
both of those were featured on Oshkosh Rocks, which you can find on YouTube. Any other bands lined up to do that show?
Present Age was released. Shuby is still being edited.
Busy with this record.
What's that?
We were busy with the record.
Yeah, we were busy with the record. And my video editor, I had to go through a few video editors here, so we're working through that. Lemurs are on the docket for next, and then I haven't really thought beyond that. Maybe Smoke Free Home reached out to me, so they're kind of in the mix too. So
they've got some great stuff. They put out a track, Frog Legs, which I think is awesome track. Yeah. The Present Age you guys are playing with tonight at Cranky Pat's in Neenah. Do you think you'll get a nap in before that show tonight?
Oh yeah,
I hope so. I will.
And I know that the Present Age, great rock band if you haven't seen them before. Who else are you playing with tonight?
Body Futures from Milwaukee. DJ Hostetler with Dixie, his wife, and the two other guys I don't know well, but we go way back with DJ. I actually went to college with DJ, and we used to play with his other band, If I Had a Hi-Fi, a lot. And so that's going to be an amazing show. I'm really looking forward to it. And he's so excited to play Cranky Pat's. He's like, I've never played at Cranky Pat's. I've always heard about it. So I think it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be the Redshift Headlights, the Present Age, and Body Futures tonight. I was going to say tonight, 9 p.m. is the start time. Mm-hmm. And it's only $10, which I think is a steal to see these three bands. Anything planned, anything scheduled after this?
We've got July 13 is the full album release show. That's going to be at the Salon. As Chris alluded to, Free Dirt's going to be playing. And then our pals from Minneapolis, Dallas Orbiter, are coming to town. So it'll be the three bands. And then we're kind of partnering with Bare Bones Brewing, so there's going to be some local beers, and then Sunken Paddle Cider Works is a local cidery in Oshkosh as well. So, it's a cool place to see a show and to play. It's very intimate, and Yeah, looking forward to that.
And what is it, on June 11th or something like that? Which is a Tuesday. We're at that Stone Arch thing in that little Cheers
The
bar.
tap room.
The tap room.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
That's a great venue to play at.
Yeah, we love that room, and we're playing with. We saw Johan last night in Madison, Def Sonic. He's opening, and he's an amazing solo artist. That just, I mean, his songs are just gorgeous and like richly constructed, but he does it all himself. It's kind of a looping, sort of layered thing, and awesome, super vibey, super cool. And then that's Tuesday, June 11th, and then we're playing Mile of Music on Saturday night, and then Sunday afternoon. So
That is excellent news. You guys had 2 shows last year. One was rained out. So, are you indoors this year or outside?
I think things are still being nailed down. You know, that's a big project to book that and schedule it. So I think they're still working on that, the details.
You know, this comment was a lot earlier, but Steve Baker, who we'll say hi to, he asked if everyone was too sleepy to be interviewed. This was before the show started, but
Ask him where he was last night.
Yeah, he was supposed to be there. He was
burned.
He's probably well rested.
That's right. Steve lives in Madison, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He was I saw on his Instagram, I think he was in Milwaukee for that like Lunar Moth, and I think his kid was playing.
Oh, that's right. He did.
Yeah.
He did post that.
So that's fine, but noted and noticed.
He's on our list now.
And I've got to get, before we get too close to the end of the show, Steve, any projects you're working on from other bands at Big Garage, which is your home studio?
Working on Red Hawks and I are planning to finish their record up, and so sometime this summer we should finish that. So that's just, as Freddie says, it's a herding cats scenario, which we all know if we're in bands at a certain, So that's really exciting. And their new songs are just off the charts great. So it's an honor to be a part of that.
One like standout example of the opposite of that scenario is I reached out to Mark with Dallas Orbiter. I'm like, hey, any chance this day works? He's like, let me look. And like 4 seconds later, he's like, all the band can do it. We can do that day. And so they've established this religious, you have this calendar, and it's a shared band calendar. And if you say you're available, you have to be available. So you need Dallas Orbiter to play anytime. You can just reach out and they'll give you availability within a minute.
That said, we did one note that we got from Steve Albini, I think a couple times, was like he really seemed to enjoy how professional and how well we could write an email and be organized and give him all the information. I think he called us like the most organized band in rock or something like that. So that's clearly what's most important when you're a band, is to be organized.
He may have said it slightly with a wry edge that, he's known for too.
He's always focusing on the essentials.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be doing a disservice to our listeners if I didn't ask where the name Redshift Headlights came from.
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Dean and I were in a band called Cookie Bug, and we had a song called Redshift Headlights, and I kind of always wanted that to be.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that. It was the last stuff we recorded with Eric Olson.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And one of those songs one of them was called Redshift Headlights, which I don't even really know what that means. It doesn't really make sense because it's like light that is moving away from you shifts to the red side of the spectrum, right? But if it's headlights, then you're not going to see the lights anyway, so it doesn't even make sense. But that's really how we.
It's pretty profound.
That's
maybe they're going
foundation
backwards.
Yeah, they're backing up away from you.
I was trying to figure it out, and I just couldn't. I thought it had to come from somewhere.
Yeah, it's best not to try.
You've given it more thought than it needs, I think. Yeah.
Where can people go to find out more about Redshift Headlights?
To our website, redshiftheadlights.com.
Instagram, Facebook, and then Bandcamp. We have the new single is up there, and I think if you pre-order the record, you get it, download it or whatever too. So,
are you doing physicals this time?
We're doing CDs, and then we're working out details for potential short run vinyl kind of thing. So we'll see what happens.